All right, we are recording for chapter 1 of Revenge of the Sith. And I'm not sure if I've written as many notes, as many separate notes. Sometimes I'll have long notes. There's a lot of separate ones because there's so many problems. Some of them are storytelling, some of them are, no, that's not how the physics work. I get the whole. I actually have a science background. I get how plenty of people don't in general, so also plenty of authors don't either. But still, is some of the stuff is like, you should know, or at least somebody should be on your team that's like, yeah, no, that's not how that works. You need to rewrite that. Oh, well, how it does work? All right, I'll tell you how it works. Kind of like the whole mirror reflecting thing from the introduction that I went on about. But yeah, there's numerous problems. Okay. Also, some things I liked. So actually, like the first note that I have here. And by the way, a lot of okay, it is Anakin and Obi-Wan arriving at the battle to them basically landing more or less in the hangar of the of Grievous's ship to rescue Palpatine. That's the length of the chapter. So now Anakin is described as well, he's described as having been affected by the war, as having lost his cocky grin. And I kind of like how it is actually described there. That's actually done pretty well. Um, it's also kind of hammy later on when it's describing how Obi-Wan has changed over these years. Like it's a bit much when it's talking about how, like it is said that Jedi, crap, how's it put it? That their learning only begins when they become a master, and because then they're learning from their students, and how that's true for everyone. It's like, well, he had a Padawan while he was a knight. Like he became a master between Attack of the Clones and this. He was referred to as a knight in Attack of the Clones, and now he's not only master, he is on the Jedi Council. But it's like, um, he he already would have been learning. What are you talking about? The statement. I get the idea, but it's factually wrong for him because he would have already been having that happen for about 3 years. Apparently, it's been 3 years since Attack of the Clones, and actually earlier because it was 13 years prior, because it references the Phantom Menace being 13 years prior to the events of this chapter. So it's been 13 years that he has been training Anakin. So it's been 13 years he's been truly learning, and now it's when it's actually happening. It's like details matter so much. I'm going to be saying that. All right, but what was point two? Okay, so I just yeah. Oh, that's typo. Oh wait, no, it's not. That is as well. But anyhow, so it's kind of sort of mentioned because Obi-Wan is noticing that the droids seem to be getting smarter, and it's like, his theory for why the Republic is losing is because they're getting smarter, so they're becoming tougher opponents. It's like, okay, that's still stupid though, because the clones was set up as, well, they're better than droids because they can think creatively, and that gives them an edge. It's like, that edge should actually still be there. In fact, it's even mentioned that at one point he uses his blasters to trigger a program in some of the droid fighters to dodge. So he's basically directing them in a certain spot. They're just obeying the program. They're smarter, but they are still obeying the program, so you can still manipulate them. That's a creative thought. The clones would still be capable of that. Clones would still be ahead. So it's even though that's the only explanation given thus far for why the Republic would be losing, it's a dumb reason. It really is. But one thing while I was actually writing up the note, that would make sense. The clones are better, but they're harder to produce. It was like, yes, they had 200,000 at the end of Attack of the Clones with a million more on the way. But it's like, if you need more, it'll take time. Like, it takes 10 years, because they apparently only double their growth, the speed of their growth, so take 10 years to get an entirely new batch. Okay. Droids can be mass-produced very quickly, though, because they are just machines. So, yeah, let me try to align myself a little bit better. How's that seem? Okay. So actually, this would be a very interesting, clever problem here. And the solution technically is the Separatists seem to be winning. to win the war, they would need to prioritize the destruction of the droid army. Because it's basically, so long as the droids exist, because they're meaningless, no one cares about them. No one cares about the clones either. But it's a bit easier to care about them because they are human. But the droids, no one should care about. They're just machines, right? They're just property to the Trade Federation. They can waste them, however. So you need to prioritize their destruction, but also the destruction of the facilities manufacturing them. So think of Geonosis, but they'd have to be more planets than that capable of churning things out. But think of Geonosis. If the Separatists were going to attack, say, Naboo, and capture Naboo, the correct strategy for the Republic would be, we go after Geonosis. What about Naboo? We have to let them take it. We have to let them take it. Because they need to stop the production of the droids. Naboo will not help with that. Capturing Naboo hurts the morale of the Republic. But the destruction of the factories on Geonosis and other worlds will actually hurt the Separatists' ability to fight. That would have been actually a much more interesting description. That's not so much the Republic is having more strategic victories, but is suffering moral defeats constantly. And so then becomes a question of which war of attrition, both playing a war of attrition, prosecuting war of attrition, which one's going to win first? Will the Separatists break the morale of the Republic to continue the fight? Or will the Republic break the Separatists' ability to fight? That actually would be a very interesting dynamic that you could then play on throughout it, and that, well, we're not actually losing, it just feels that way because of what we do lose as we fight. But nope, it's just suggested, and it's still unclear that, that they're just, getting smarter. Which, by the way, it's also mentioned that Anakin has been modifying R2, and that's why he is, so he is also getting smarter and getting these new features. Which it's like, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. It's not been set up previously. It also is mentioned that, the Naboo engineers also made modifications. That's never been touched on, or when that happened. And it did also occur to me, R2 is actually, he's been previously described as Padme's droid, not Anakin's. So there could have been some mention of her giving him to Anakin as her contribution to the war, because otherwise it'd say, hey, Anakin, yes? Why are you always going around with the senator's droid? It's like, I get your friends, but that is her droid. Did she give it to you? Of course she did. Why? We're married. That's a problem. And by the way, it's not been mentioned in that relationship. That they are close is mentioned, but it's like, they could just still be friends, not married. All right, what's the... Okay. This is a thing where, again, it's kind of actually, it's very much the details matter. So it's the battles going on. These two fly in their fighters. It takes so freaking long before they're like, let's switch over and start talking to the clones. This is obsessively stupid, okay? I am obsessing over this because of the stupidity of it. You are flying in to a heated battle, and you're not telling your side, hey, we're here. They don't know that you're there. They don't know why you're there. They don't know what you're going to do. It's like, and you, because of just the dynamic of the clones and the Jedi are commanders to them, always. That's how it's been depicted in the movies, at least. In the movie. Just in Revenge of the Sith, necessarily. Technically also End of Attack of the Clones, but they answer to the Jedi always. So these are both, they're captains, right? So they would need to tell them what's up. They wouldn't need to say, yes, this is what we're doing. And the clones would want to know. But nope. It takes so long. It's not until they figure out... not until they identify where Palpatine's tracking signal is, which is the dumbest concept as well. It's not until then that they figure out, that's where Palpatine is. Oh, and it's on Grievous's ship. Okay, now we'll start talking to the clones. It's like, no, you should have been talking to them the moment you got there. And also... getting information out of them as far as, not just telling them, hey, we're here, we're going to try it, we are focused on getting to Palpatine. And then clones could respond, okay, we'll make the holes for you while we continue the larger battle. Okay? That would be completely fair, completely sensible. but it could also be a, have you any intelligence on which ship he might be on? They could say, well, we did see a shuttle come up from Coruscant to Grievous's ship. Or it could just be, no, but here's Grievous's flagship. It seems most likely he would be there. It's like, there's so many different reasons why, yes, you would communicate the moment you arrived. Before you even entered into the battle, you would be talking. But no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to talk to the people that would tell us all this information that we need to talk to. Details matter. One thing also that was interesting is that how it's described, and by the way, I should also mention this. I'll mention this right now. The writing I don't like for how it is bouncing back and forth between Anakin and Obi-Wan. I really don't like this, and it's for a very specific reason. How it is bouncing back and forth. So, I'm trying to remember exactly how I did it in the Children Many Gifts, because I do have the view bounce at certain times, but I tend to anchor to one person. And then it's like you follow for a while. Here, you kind of go back and forth, but it's in such a way, and because they're also conversing back and forth with each other, having the italics for what's coming over the radio, so from the other person, helps. But still there are times where it's like, wait, I thought I was following Anakin last, and he was in front, but now you're referring to Obi-Wan being in the front, because now we're on it. It's bouncing back and forth so much, and using relative terms as I'm not following it. I feel like, okay, you need to have it more be like, instead of going, it needs to be more like, no, we're here, and we're just like listening more here. It's like more like this, where the point of view is up here. You're just focused more on Anakin, then you're focused more on Obi-Wan, instead of a Anakin, then Obi-Wan, Anakin, then Obi-Wan. Because it's like so much is going on. I literally had to go back and be like, wait, what? Anakin was in the front, being trailed by 12... I think it may have been Tri-Fighters, I don't remember, because there's 12 droids. And then Obi-Wan follows. But then next it talks about about Anakin entering the trench after Obi-Wan. It's like, Obi-Wan's behind Anakin, isn't he? I was so confused, and I'm still confused. I still have no idea. I was just like, maybe I'm misreading it, or maybe it's just badly read. I don't know, I'm just going to keep going. Yeah. Anyway. So, R2 is apparently the one operating Anakin's guns. Which is curious, because I wouldn't think he's for repair, isn't he? Why is he special? Why is he able to handle the guns? Whereas, I mean, apparently he's just been upgraded for that. But Obi-Wan is using an R4, which, in Attack of the Clones, it was described that the R4 units were good for navigation. So I find this a little interesting. It may make sense because Anakin could be just so good a pilot still, he doesn't need navigation help. It's the guns that he needs help with, but it still is why is he not the one operating the guns? But so often it's R2 taking the shot, R2 take the shot, R2 take the shot. Seems a little weird. Alright, I'm going to need to start doing this. Then I just have one thing. I have a feeling this is more of just we need to have it align with what was stated in A New Hope. Why is it actually called the Clone Wars? When you think about it, it doesn't make sense, the Clone War, because it's a civil war, and the clones are only on one side. If you had clones on both sides, that would be different. But yeah, I have a feeling it's more just that they were stuck with that because that's what Lucas picked as the name of this event. Over 20 years prior? Almost 30 years prior? It's... yeah. Okay. Now I need to... because we also got some talking up that was like, no, this is obnoxious. So talk... and some of it about Obi-Wan I liked. How it is talking about the impact that has been had on him and his growth and all that. That I kind of like. But it still comes to, he's respected throughout the Jedi Order for his insight as well as his warrior skill. He's become the hero of the next generation of Padawans. He is the Jedi their masters hold up as a model. He is the being that the Council assigns to the most important missions. He is modest, centered, and always kind. He is the ultimate Jedi. I don't care. I'm sorry. This is like let him just be that. Don't tell me that. Let him just be it. This is just obnoxious to me. Okay? And the sad part is that it's like one paragraph, and we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not counting single line paragraphs. 6, 7, 8, 9 and a half, essentially. That's one of them. If you had cut that out, I would be happier. But it's this one because it's just like so bubbling, so over the top. He is so wonderful. It's like Yoda and Mace Windu should both be able to kick his ass whenever they want, okay? That's who those two are supposed to. Certainly Yoda, okay? That's the level Yoda's supposed to be. But no. He is the ultimate Jedi. It's like, no, he's not. Obi-Wan is not the ultimate Jedi. You do have beings who should be higher up than him. Stop doing this. And there's also the whole, it's mentioned later on. Let me see if I can get to it. Because they do the same kind of, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay. Hang on. Just a moment. Okay, I might need to pause again to fully answer that. But here, this is Anakin Skywalker, and this is also really bad because it's like we've already gotten to know how skilled Anakin is as a pilot, some of his interactions with Obi-Wan as well, and now we get to this is Anakin Skywalker, and it's the most powerful Jedi of his generation, perhaps of any generation, the fastest, the strongest, an unbeatable pilot, an unstoppable warrior. On the ground, in the air, or sea, or space, there is no one even close. He is not just power, not just skill, but dash, that rare, invaluable combination of boldness and grace. He is the best there is at what he does, the best there's ever been, and he knows it. What's the next point? Can I just... It's just so... it's the whole show, don't just tell me. It's that, but this is to an even higher level than that, okay? It's not just you're saying this thing. Because sometimes it's somebody just says something, but it's short, it's quick. Like, if it were just, he's the best there is at what he does, and just left, it wouldn't be as bad as this. Okay, it's... Because also, how do you square this with... Kenobi, he is the ultimate Jedi, but Anakin is the best at whatever it is that he does. He's the best at it. I'm putting it that way because there are some things like we're not getting that Anakin's the best with a blaster. He doesn't use a blaster, so he's not the best at that. It's just if it's something he does, he's the best at it. And we also get later on that Obi-Wan needs to keep reminding himself that the impossible things seem to only be difficult for Anakin. But this actually does then touch on something that was actually kind of neat. I do also still some issues with it, but it is still kind of neat. Is that actually the next note? Okay, yes it is. That's helpful. And after that, I think I'll actually pause to take care of the text I got. Okay, so an early mission that Obi-Wan had when training Anakin was to visit a world that... and a lot of things are wrong with this, but has a apparently almost completely frozen dwarf there. As in, so, and this bothered Anakin greatly because just the idea of a star dying, a star being mortal, hurt him. Well, it didn't hurt him, but it deeply touched him. It deeply upset him. And it's part of his whole fear of death stuff that is critical to the character. Because that's how the Sith ultimately tempt him. How the dark side ultimately tempts him. And it is interesting. Unfortunately, it's also nonsense for what is larger scheme of how this is described. Black dwarfs are a theoretical object. That makes sense, but we don't know. We've not observed any. Where it's basically you have a white dwarf that is just hunk of carbon, usually. That's the core of a star that is dying and slowly just giving off all of its residual heat. Yeah, that's a fine theory, makes perfect sense. The only thing is that last time I remember seeing anything on that theory, it suggested that only now would we potentially have the first black dwarfs in existence. Because it wouldn't be one of the first generation of stars that would produce a black dwarf, that would produce a white dwarf. The first generation of stars would have been so massive, they basically always would have ended in a supernova that would have destroyed the core as well. At least I'm pretty sure that that is the case. Like the remnant there, you'd expect it to either become a stellar mass black hole, a neutron star, or that it would have just been obliterated. That you need a main sequence star like the sun is, and it's not a first generation star, to have a white dwarf that could then cool. So the idea of this not only being a black dwarf, which in theory just means that it's cool enough to not glow in visible light, but this is described as hovering a quantum fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Which is also a problem because technically space is not that cold. It's not. It's a little bit more than that. I think it's around 2 Kelvin. So being even lower than that, it's like, well, no, ambient temperature should have it be a little higher. But even still, no. You're not going to have an object that cold somewhere in a galaxy long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's like, no, it would not be that cold. So that did annoy me. I get you want such an object to exist there as a dead star, but it's like, you can't go that far with it. That is scientific detail. Details matter, but I am willing to give a pass as far as, yeah, some people, even that would know this, don't necessarily think it through that, well, no, it couldn't be that cool yet. And that's fine, but still is a details matter kind of thing. All right. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to pause the recording again so I can take care of that. And, yeah, but it's... I like its description and how it impacts him. It does make sense. It also makes it a little ironic that it's later called the Death Star. But then I do also wonder if they do, like, harken back to that in this, if that was just like, oh, hey, aren't I clever to have this idea? It's like, no, you're not. It's like, if you're doing it that way, then you're an idiot. If you're doing it as just, this is what impacted him, that's great. I like that. But if it's like, no, I wanted to make the Death Star name ironic, it's like, no. But, yeah, as I said, I will be back. But you won't even know because that's a nice thing with OBS having a pause button now. Yep, did not pause it. I misclicked. Actually, no, the mouse doesn't always actually click. Alright, I am back, and hopefully that pausing wasn't an issue. I try not to pause for too long. Anyway, where are we? I know I just finished going on about the bubbly stuff, as I put it, with Anakin this time, not just Obi-Wan. Okay. So we get some of the whole... Anakin is... In fact, hang on, let me see if I can find it. I doubt I will. But I might be able to. Okay. I'm just trying to see where to start. So it's talking about how he's always been a good pilot. When he was a kid, he was just instinctively using the Force. Now he knows he's using the Force. And how he becomes like one with the ship to fly. He can forget about his slavery, about his mother, about Geonosis and Jabim. Other planet names. And all the catastrophes of this brutal war, but everything that had been done to him, and everything he had done. He even put aside for as long as the battle roared around him, the starfire of his love for the woman who waited for him in the world below. And, you know, more that stuff there. I just don't feel like reading that because I'm trying to get to this. He could put all this aside because he was a Jedi, because it was time to do a Jedi's work, but today was different. Today wasn't about dodging lasers and blasting droids. Today was about the life of a man who might as well have been his father. A man who could die if the Jedi couldn't reach him in time. Anakin had been late once before, referring back to Shmi, his mother. So, this is interesting. This setup here, mainly because of a technically not a payoff, but something later in the chapter. So it is obviously talking up his relationship with Palpatine, which Attack the Clones both set up and said, no, it doesn't exist. Because it had mentioned that in that introduction how Palpatine always made time for him, but then later it was like, oh yeah, they rarely ever see each other. It's like, make up your mind. So here it's clearly they see each other. But later, after going through all this stuff and then seeing over there, oh, the clones are fighting the droids. Let's go over and help them. It's like, no, we have to rescue Palpatine. It's like, why is Obi-Wan having to remind Anakin of that? Anakin is like, I can forget everything I need to save him. This is why I'm here. This is why everything is unimportant but this. Which is also kind of his priorities a little screwed up. But, I mean, it's like, I think, your wife should be a bit higher priority. But in any case, let's put that aside. It still is oh, look over there. There's people to help. It's like, no. Your focus is here. They don't, if anything, I mean, it would be outside of Obi-Wan's character to be like, shouldn't we be helping them? And Anakin going, no, we have to. But it's like, that's where Anakin's mind should be. That's where he should be. Also reminds me, I mentioned it and then I didn't finish it. The point about they're looking for a tracking beacon for Palpatine. It's like, is this like inside of him? And there's also something in Attack of the Clones, it being mentioned that Obi-Wan was trying to find Anakin's beacon and found on Tatooine instead of Naboo. And it's like, why are you doing that? Because it's also okay, we're trying to hunt down Padme Amidala to kill her, but we don't know where she is. What's the last thing we knew? Well, there were Jedi guarding her. Jedi? Do you know which ones? Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker, we believe. Why? Because they have transmitters in them. We just need to track either of them, and we'll know where she is. It's like, all right, let's start tracking. Well, Obi-Wan's on Kamino, and Anakin is on Naboo. Oh, now he's on Tatooine, and it's like, okay. So Obi-Wan being on Kamino, that's a problem. But clearly, Padme would not be there. She must be with Anakin, so we just need to follow him, and very easy to kill. We're done. And Palpatine, this high, almighty person of the Republic, can be tracked. He's clearly not that secured, is he? Because if you're abducting the dude, you're taking that out. You're gonna stop that. Or better, you do take it out, maybe with some physical damage to him. Why do you care? You take that out, you put it on another ship. And you're just like, now they won't know where to find you. It's like, this is freaking obvious. Details matter. The details matter so much. It's that whole box in that presentation. The idea yes, when you write a story, especially science fiction story, this is science fantasy, not fiction. Not science fiction, it's science fantasy. Very much the fantasy because it's fantastic that anyone thinks this is good. But it's like, yes, you are in a box, but you're the one building the box. This is like, oh, we have these things in the box that we completely ignore. And it's like, dudes, take that box, shrink it for one thing. You have way too much in there that you're just not paying any attention to, that you're ignoring, that you're throwing out. Shrink it so you're down to the stuff that actually matters and only work with that. Stop reaching out of it, okay? I don't care that the Force is magic, that lets you go outside the box. You know what? Forget all that. Get rid of the Force. Write it with that. Because it's also, let's be real. This is something throughout all three books. They have no idea what the Force is, which is really sad. I would say it is. I actually do want to try writing a story that involves magic. That will, it will actually just be magic. It won't be this mysterious force in the science fantasy set. No, it will be magic. And just like, actually use it. Where it's like, no. Obviously, I mean, it's like, there's an idea in here that, well, no, it's not an idea, it is stated, that Obi-Wan, as his ship is damaged by the buzz droids, which is that actually... Nope, that's not the next point. I do have a point about that. That while they're being damaged, and he loses control, he just starts reaching out with the Force to control the ship directly. It's like, yeah, he should have been doing that from the beginning. It's like, why does he have to think of that? That should be natural for him. That should be natural for Anakin. In fact, if these are Jedi starfighters, not just off-the-shelf starfighters, Jedi starfighters. What would actually make sense is if they're designed for the Jedi to have control over it, physically, actually adjusting things through the Force, not just through traditional controls. Why not? Because you may be able to design them to take special advantage of what the Jedi are capable of doing, what the Force allows them to do. But maybe that would make them smaller, more maneuverable, put bigger weapons on. There's so many things you could then potentially do. But we're not doing it because they basically never use the Force, it seems. It's just... Anakin has a better connection to his ship while piloting than any Jedi is described as having with the Force. And it's very disappointing. Okay, what was this next note? Oh yeah, how do they plan on actually rescuing Palpatine? This goes back to the whole them not communicating with the clones. That they are in fighters, one-seaters. Even if both ships survive them getting to the flagship that Palpatine is on, they can't stick him in one and leave. There's been no communication with the clones of, okay, if that's the ship, we're going in, put together a group of however many dozen fighters and transports and cruisers to assail this thing, because we will get him and bring him back to the hangar deck. We need you to capture that, to secure that, so we can evacuate him. That needs to be a discussion, and it's not. It does come up mentioned later, like literally on the second to last or third to last page, Anakin thinking about, I could start blasting at all of the droids with my ship in the hangar, but if there's a ricochet and it hits one of the shuttles, I might need that to get him off. It's like, actually, no, you should have already been discussing that problem with the clones, but also, it could even be it doesn't matter, I can destroy all of this, because the clones are going to come and get that. Like, we are the first incursion here to rescue him. It will be somebody else then getting us off the ship. There's nothing wrong with that idea. But we're not even having that idea. It's just like, oh yeah, I could believe it would say, oh yeah, that's right, they need to be able to get off the ship. Well, I'll just mention that, the shuttle's there, and he needs to be careful not to destroy it. It's also, this is a big ship. It's described as being 1 kilometer long. It probably has more than one hangar bay. Just saying. And it would make sense to have multiple, because that way there's multiple points that fighters could leave from, fighters could land from. And also, if one is destroyed, you still have the other. I mean, it's like even our aircraft carriers. I'm trying to think, because there's like one main runway and then one that goes off at the side. I don't know if you can launch off of both at the same time, but still is. They can launch and land at the same time. That I do know we are capable of doing with modern aircraft carriers. So it would make sense you would have this design then in a spaceship so that you can, that there would be multiple hangars, so you can have a constant flow in and out. You're not having to queue up both actions. So yeah, it's... Okay, now it gets to the whole buzz droids are on Obi-Wan's ship. On his fighter, sorry. So they do everything but actually try to kill him. Which is a comment about how, they're getting smarter. It's like, no, they're not. If they were smart, they would have immediately gone for the, what is it? No, not there. The canopy. That's it. That's the term. Would have immediately gone for the canopy. Because you either cut at the glass, or you cut at the joints. You do something so that it kills him. Because he's all that matters. I'm going to say, if you do that, that is 1 point of failure, it's done. Versus, we're just going to try to take off the control surfaces here, the control surfaces, which also not control surfaces, that makes no sense. But it's like, you could do that, or you could actually try to kill him. I mean, it's like, you should be trying to kill him. But yeah, let me get on the control surface thing before getting to this, another physics point. I mean, technically these are both physics points. It refers to control panels. Control planes. So it's like actual hardware for moving up and down like that to try to adjust resistance, adjust friction so that it moves you around. Doesn't work when it is described as being in a hard vacuum. Because put the flaps up. It's like, well, there's no air. It doesn't change anything. You would be using thrusters here. So, like, you would be having to use maneuvering thrusters, but they're describing something else entirely. Details matter, and this is not a small one, actually. I was like, this would be part of... And it might not even be this author. It would be somebody else, potentially, that has designed out these ships and would have had to have designed out thrusters and would tell them, this is how it works. So make sure when writing it that you include that. And it's like, nope, we're not doing that. But, no, the thing that I did note, Buzz Droid is in there. It's cutting lines, so now a gas is venting out. Okay, that's fine. But it's describing a cloud forming. Okay, that's fine. That, because it's so cold, it's freezing, and it's blocking Obi-Wan's vision because it's building up on the canopy. Okay, that's... But then it says that it's hanging there because it's traveling at the same speed as him. It's like, okay, that's not fine. That's not fine. I get the whole, okay, there's no friction, but still is... Well, there's no friction, which means that if it's venting, then there's nothing that would keep it at the ship, at the fighter. If it's venting, so the line is here, let's say, and it vents out in all directions. Its momentum will keep it going out. It's not staying by the ship. Okay, so it would be dispersing naturally just from that. But even if we ignore that, if it's going out, it talks about how, he has to accelerate to try to go through. They're usually described as like, or at least you're assuming, the engine's are always going. Like in the movie, you'll see the lights for the engines are always on. So you're constantly providing an acceleration of force for the fighter to go forward that isn't being translated to the cloud. It's going to fall behind you. Because you're constantly doing that. Either because you are continuing to speed up, or even if you're at your maximum speed, depending on what that is, if it's getting towards like half the speed of light, and at one point something was mentioned about being at a respectable fraction of the speed of light, something like that. At about half the speed of light, that's where you get into relativistic speeds. Which could actually mean then that, yes, you would have to continue to pump power. It ceases to be linear. So the amount of energy to achieve a certain speed ceases to be linear for when you're at relativistic speeds. It starts to go exponential. So at that point then, like let's say that they're traveling at 0.6, 0.7. In order to maintain that speed, they constantly have to be firing the engines, because the momentum itself should actually slow it down, I would think. Although, I'm not sure. But it is also true, there would be other forces you might be having to fight. I don't know. But it still is. If the engines are continuously firing, like all the time, then the cloud has to fall behind because it's not getting any of that energy. That is still true. I'm just trying to think about the other physics of, would you, when traveling at a relativistic speed, need the engines to continue burning? Would you continue to need that because there is no friction to take it away? But I'm just wondering if, because of how the whole relativity stuff works, would that cause you to slow back down? Like a relativistic drag. I'm actually not sure. I'd have to look into that. I know one thing, though. That's a good reason to just say, yeah, we're never going above half the speed of light with sublight. I mean, it's like anything above that, we're going into warp or light speed, hyperspace nonsense. Like you're doing that then, so it's like, yeah, we're changing the physics anyway. Yeah. But still that is one of those details where it's like, no, that... And the next thing, and I can actually close this now. So they get it, Anakin blows the shield for the hangar base so Obi-Wan and he can fly, and Obi-Wan's ship is completely crippled, like going to explode soon, crippled. Which is not how it's described which is not how I recall it being in the movie. Like they come in together. No, Obi-Wan crashes in there first, and Anakin like had to destroy the shield and then like going around again. But describes the atmosphere evacuating out, venting out through the huge opening, right? Obi-Wan pops the canopy at this time, actually using his lightsaber to do it, no less, because the explosive bolts weren't working. So then he jumps out, and despite the atmosphere evacuating back, he still is able to right himself using the Force and lands and is like ready while it's still evacuating. It's like, that's not how this is going to work. Because you're talking about the total surface area of his body is going to have air pushing against him to leave the hangar. That's a fair amount of surface area. He's not landing. Okay? He is out of that. He's completely out of that unless the atmosphere itself has completely evacuated. Now Anakin comes back in. The doors do close. Blast doors close so it can pump the air back in. But it's also like, well, hang on. Let's think about this. The ship primarily has droids on it. They don't need to breathe. And it's droids that you're sending in and out through the hangar. Why does it even have atmosphere? Like, you could easily just keep that vented and no one can get in. But instead, they must pump that back up because you would lose a lot of air in that. There's no way those two are breathing well. But there's no mention of any apparatus to counter this. No, they're fine. He landed fine. It's like, make up your mind. Are you losing atmosphere or not? Apparently both. Last note I have is just the whole, it's mentioned that it was 13 years since the end of Phantom Menace. So apparently this is 3 years after Attack of the Clones, give or take, because Attack of the Clones was approximately 10 years. It got a little wishy-washy there. Approximately 10 years, so I probably not touching on 11 for that, so this is 13 years, so we're approximately 3 years after that, so. It's a mess. It is such a mess. Which is so disappointing, but hey, it's 41 minutes. I hope that at some point I can not have to go on and on and on with these problems, but being critical of another's work can help you with your own, because you see those weaknesses there, hopefully you remember them, so you can avoid them yourself. I'm already apparently very technical, very analytical, very pedantic with this, and I'm just training that up even better. It's gonna be so much fun when I get to writing some of this shit on my own.